Today's lesson is solving by square roots. So far we have simplified square roots. We have seen more difficult operations with square roots. Today we're actually going to throw in an equal sign and solve an equation using square roots. So if you remember, we talked about evaluating the square root by doing a factor tree. So 81 can be simplified not to 8. It was 9 and 9. And because it's a pair, it comes out. This is a perfect square. Here we have a -1 outside, so if you remember, we're going to bring that down, and we simplify the 100 to 10 and 10, and that is going to be multiplied to what we already took out, which our answer would be -10. And remember, the negative is on the outside, so that's okay. -64 with the square root over it. Because the negative is on the inside, you cannot have that, so this is a no solution. So now we're going to use square roots to solve a quadratic equation. A quadratic equation has an x squared in it, so it's not just x anymore, it's now x squared. Watch out for perfect squares. Give exact answers, which means no decimals, and each answer should have a equal sign or it is only partially correct. So when you have an x squared, if we think back to solving, we had, let's say, x plus 5 equals 10, right? And we would subtract 5 because these signs are opposite. Okay, we would say x is 5 to solve. An x squared has an opposite symbol as well, and it happens to be the square root. So square root and squared cancel each other out, but what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So we have x equals 10. This perfect square is just 10. So always check with your calculator. So in your calculator, type square root of 100, hit enter. If it's a whole number, that's a perfect square. If it's a decimal, that means you have to simplify using the factor tree. In number 2, our goal is to get x squared alone, so we have to move the -8 to the other side of this equal sign. So add 8, and 8 plus 8 is 16. And when you take the square root, because that's the opposite to get rid of that square, you have x equals, and this one also is a perfect square, of 4. So again, make sure you are looking at your calculator. Type in square root 16. If it gives you 4, no decimal, that's the answer. If it gives you a decimal, you have to simplify by a factor tree. On this one, since it's a -25, we have to add 25. So we have x squared is equal to 25. Take the square root of that, check in your calculators, type in square root 25, and you'll notice it gives you just 5, which is your answer. Okay, so these were all perfect squares. For number 4, again, we're going to have to get x squared alone. So we would subtract 14. So you have x squared is equal to 95 minus 14, which is not 60, 81. Take the square root, so in your calculators type square root 81, and you're going to get 9, another perfect square. For this one, we would divide by 2, and 242 divided by 2 is 121. Take the square root, and that's 11, another perfect square. Here, again, we're going to divide by 3 because it's being multiplied by 3. So we would have x squared is equal to 60. And if you check when you take the square root of 60, it's going to give you a decimal. So what we're going to have to do is simplify this using a factor tree. So 60 can be divided by 3, Or you could do 10, 6 and 10. 6 can be simplified to 3 and 2. 10 can be simplified to 2 and 5. So here we have a pair of 2's that's going to come outside the square root, and the 3 and the 5 stay in. Okay, so we bring down our x and our equal sign, but our final answer is going to be 2 square root 15. They're going to get a little more difficult. So in this problem, remember our goal is to get the x squared alone, so then we can square root it, but we have to follow the same rules we've been using all year. We move our number that doesn't have the variable first. So you have negative 6x squared equals negative 150. Since we're multiplying by negative 6, we have to divide by negative 6. And you get x squared is equal to 25, positive. Two negatives create a positive. Take your square root, put that in your calculator. Again, if you get a whole number, that's your answer. If you don't, you have to break it down. So here we have parentheses, and if you remember back to PEMDAS, parentheses is first, but we're going to distribute into there. 2 times 24 is 48. 2 times x squared is 2x squared. Okay, and then copy down everything else. Combine your like terms because they're on the same side of the equal sign. So you would have 2x squared plus 1x squared, which is 3x squared, plus 48 equals 0. When you subtract 48 from 0, you're going to get 3x squared is equal to negative 48. Since you are multiplying by 3, we have to divide by 3. So you get x squared is equal to negative 16. When you take the square root, where is the negative? The negative is on the inside, so this is a no solution. You cannot take the square root of a negative 16. Number 9, we would subtract 50. 50 minus 50 is 0. Divide by 3. X squared equals 0. And what is the square root of 0? From your calculators, it's 0. So remember, if you have problems that are not perfect squares, like number 6, you have to break it down. Always check on that calculator. If you can check on the calculator, if it gives you a whole number, that's your answer. Otherwise, if it gives you a decimal, you have to simplify. So good luck on your homework and your in-class practice.